Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm out for another plein air adventure here with Habowskistudio. If you're new to the channel, thanks for joining me. I'm going to be doing a river scene today on a more panoramic sort of panel. And what I've done is I've taken a larger panel, I'm going to split it up so you can actually just carry big panels and then split them up in whatever composition you arrive at on your location, which kind of helps keep down in the gear that you have to carry. But here's my setup behind me. Gorilla Painter campaign box, plein air umbrella. So let's get started. Hey everybody, how's it going? Probably wondering where in the heck I've been making videos, but I've had a very busy summer so far. Things are going great, and I apologize for not getting more videos out there, but like I've mentioned before, I don't want to just put out videos just to keep current. Just want to try to put out good content. So I have been out painting a couple times, just have not had the opportunity to film. And several days ago, last week, I went to the Castine Plein Air Festival and was very busy in 2 days. If you follow me on Facebook, you would have seen the first painting I did there, 11 by 14. Turned out really nice. And then I posted the lighthouse that sold in the sale exhibition at the end of the show. So I'll be posting a couple more that I did there over time, so be sure to follow me there. Also on Instagram. This place is next town across the river in Winslow, Maine. I've been there a couple times, taking a little hike along the river, and it's a beautiful spot. And something I did different in this particular piece was, as you can see, I'm only painting on part of the large panel. I decided to go for a more panoramic view, and I didn't have that size panel. So I said that's okay, I'll just scribe off where I want to create the image, and I can cut off the rest later when the paint dries on my table saw. So pretty good idea if you want to be not carrying too many different size panels. Just carry some large ones for the large-ish size that you'll be doing on site. Then you only need to maybe carry two, and do a couple smaller pieces on one of them, and do a large piece on another. Something to think about. And also in this painting, I don't use the color too often. No reason. I just tend to favor ultramarine blue and cobalt blue, but I used cerulean blue in this painting also. Gives you some nice different shades of green, which I kind of like to do once in a while in a painting. Really try to study those greens. And like I was saying, this spot I actually was planning on, when you walk along the pathway along the river, it comes to a little bit of a tributary that comes off there, and then a little pond. It's like a causeway that goes over probably about 100 feet from the water, and then you got a pond on the other side. And I wanted to paint there so I can practice doing, because the pond water has a very distinct color, and I thought that would be interesting to show, reflections into the water, but it's not going to be necessarily the color of the object causing the reflecting into the water. When that shadow hits that water, it's just going to show the color of the water. But also you had shadows kind of going across the plane of the water, and because the water was kind of a dark color, there was some multiple light effects going on that would have been very neat to do. But this particular time of day just wasn't going to be. I had noticed that effect on a previous hike and didn't have my painting stuff. So I'll have to revisit the place. It's only a few miles from home. And here I am, just kind of, what I'm finding I tend to have a habit of doing now, and it seems to work pretty well, is getting in a base value of the tone of color in a given area to give me a good starting point to go lighter or darker. It's nothing new in the world of art, but for me in my working method, I haven't done that too often, and it seems to be a natural progression that seems to be working for me. Then I can push and pull, but also in the beginning stages I find it very useful because you can really get some blocks of color that are fairly close to the scene So as you're developing the painting as a whole, like I don't work on one particular part and work my way across. I dance around a lot, try to bring the piece up to completion all in the same level so I can have comparisons to do. So something I recommend trying. And just kind of, again, getting some cooler tones back there, and you can see a little bit warmer green on that distant foreground land mass. Kind of like that effect. It really kind of projects forward just a bit. Really nice. You know, I'm looking at, as I'm playing this back, doing the voiceover and stuff, and in general, before I went to that Plein Air Festival, I would usually only complete my paintings to roughly 85%. And the main reason I did that was I want to bring it home, study it, to make it a painting. Because sometimes on site, you know, I just take everything in. I might put in details that don't really need to be there when I get a chance to look at it at home. So it was interesting with the Plein Air Festival I had to produce and get the work done, and really testing, trying to make the decisions on the fly for what kind of editing I wanted to do. And I like the analogy that I read somewhere, and I've been telling all the artist people I know, and they all love it, and I think it's just excellent. It's like when I'm in the studio, say I was painting a scene from a photo or a compilation of plein air studies also. In the studio, I'm painting a novel of that scene. So I have many pages to describe that story. When I'm outside, I'm painting a poem. I have to take that same story and condense it into a few paragraphs or just one page. And I just love that. I think makes so much sense, and it really kind of hones, and they feed off each other, the different processes. So it's something to think about, trying to find, like, if there's 30 things outdoors that, you know, to describe your story. In plein air, you know, usually you only get to pick, say, 15 or 10, you know, to use an example. And what are those elements going to be to suggest the uniqueness of your subject, the color, time of day? I mean, it is such a challenge. Now again, you know, I want to take a moment to again apologize for frequency of my postings lately for the videos. Just, you know, life gets in the way, and of course for me in the summer I want to take advantage of everything Maine has to offer for sure, and trying to expand my horizons artistically and such. And never mind, I got a new paddleboard, and I've been having lots of fun with that, and I've already started doing modifications on it to see if I could paint from the paddleboard, because it's basically like you're sitting on a platform. And so far some ideas are potentially going to work out, so we'll see, because with the fishing sit on top kayak, there's a lot of ups and downs, a little bit where you put your feet and where you sit and all that sort of thing. Kind of boring stuff, but we'll see. Oh, this is interesting right here in this area, as you can see in the video where I'm putting in the light tones. That's what I mean about finding it useful to get that 75% average value of that color tone. And then when I just knocked in those highlights back there, how little you need to really give a sense of distant highlights, because of course they're not going to be strong, brilliant highlights as something recedes away from you for atmospheric conditions. Even on a fairly clear day, you're going to get some disruption in the clarity, the saturation. Now here, pulling out my palette knife, which I don't do enough. The few times I've done it in some of my paintings, I really enjoy doing it, and most of the time I wouldn't say I forget about it, but there might be an area that doesn't really lend itself well to the idea. But here with the grass and everything and being a landscape, I said now's the opportunity to have a little more interest in the foreground. Trying to strike in, it had like just recently been mowed, so you have some of that dead grass on top of the fresh grass growing. Not much, but here and there. So I tried to pick the pieces parts to kind of design the idea of what was going on without showing exactly what was there, because it design-wise wasn't very interesting. And that's what we must do as artists. Now there's just some scrubby type vegetation kind of growing on the edge of the field. So just trying to figure out a method for that. Now this, whoops, sorry, that's my phone. I apologize for that. Turn that down. Now this was a fun part of the painting, and I mean that a little sarcastically. I got so caught up in trying to control the edge of that tree and get some interest on the edge, and what I was running into was the fact that I was making the tree too unnaturally round. I was getting caught up in trying to do the edge control, and after the fact realized I made a super nice cotton ball tree, I call it. So I fixed that later in the studio. And you know, that can happen. We get caught up in certain areas of the painting, and it's really, sometimes I'll catch myself, you know, spend a few minutes in the middle of the painting and step back and see how things are progressing. But in this particular painting, I was just I think more concentrated on edge control and getting a nice mixture of greens that, you know, trying to manage all the concerns could be a little tricky at times. So just something we have to be aware of when we're working on our paintings and such. But I'm hoping tomorrow to head out. I have a place nearby. They finally, we got some hay bales action going on here in Maine. I love hay bales. And this particular field has some cool little undulating parts to it. It's not just a flat field. So with the hay bales on them at different angles, it's going to be pretty cool. So I'm hoping to check it out tomorrow morning if the weather's nice, and hopefully do some painting and do a video of it so you can see how I handle some hay bales and such. I think it's going to be pretty fun. Previously, when I was out driving around, I think it was a week and a half before that, I did do a version. I was driving home and I saw them making the hay bales, and I went, oh, that's so excellent. And then the next morning I went out and painted one of the fields, and it's coming along pretty good, but I didn't have the opportunity to film it. So I'm hoping to do that tomorrow for you. Okay, we're going to be wrapping it up here momentarily and getting to some more commentary on the painting when I brought it home from out painting on site. But I just want to throw out there, I'm kind of toying with the idea through using Skype and doing some critiques. You viewers out there, if you want some suggestions on your paintings or wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in your painting, doing a Skype session. And if you're interested in that, I'd like to see what's going on. Leave them in the comments, and we'll work out pricing, that sort of thing, that we can use PayPal for payment, that sort of thing. So let me know if you're interested in something like that, and I'll try to develop it more and do a little quick couple-minute video on the details so you know more. All right, take care. So you're probably wondering what's going on and why didn't we see the rest of the painting? Why did it end so abruptly? Well, my battery died. So I usually carry around a big camera bag and it has my batteries and such in it, but lately I've been carrying around just my little Gorilla Pod with this tiny ELPH camera. Seems to be more portable, and I've been meaning to take a little pouch and put in the important accessories, you know, battery being one of them, for this sort of thing. So sorry about that, but let me show you the painting, the final product, and take a look at it and talk about it a little bit. Okay, so here's the painting after about I'd say an hour and a half, close to 2 hours of work, and it's a beautiful day to paint and such. But one of the things that is really nice, you can't, I don't know if the details are going to pick it up. Let me zoom in here a bit. But there's a dam back here on the river, and it's really cool putting those little bits of architectural detail in the distance to show kind of like landscape interrupted, man's footprint on the land. And then of course I like that little right here. You see them along these pathways, these nature pathways, but it's like a little bat house sort of thing. It wasn't in that particular location. I stole it and put it in from another part of the river. But we're artists, we can do that. I just felt it needed a structural element there. And overall, let me zoom back out a bit. I like the composition. It's going to need some more contrast elements. And what happens when I tend to work on site is I'm really going after naturalistic color pretty much. And in nature, a lot of times, there's so much very close values. And even though I had the plein air umbrella, you still trying to decipher just how intense to make something, how not, to judge it. Of course, when you're indoors is the best way to judge it and see what you need to pump up. So I'll intensify set off this field a little more, but I do like my little tree line that I captured. The variations of greens I'm happy with. And the subtle sky, I'm not sure. Let me zoom in again to see, whoops, if we can get some subtle value differences in the sky. And one thing too, I got caught up in really trying to get the edge of the tree interesting because you have wet paint, and then applying that, trying not to muddle up too much. Very challenging to do that. So I ended up with what I call a cotton ball tree. Almost a perfect circle there. So I'll make that a little more wild looking, and that kind of element. Few changes over here, setting off this rim, a little more rim lighting on this foreground bush. I'll do a combination of things, lighten this a bit on the rim here, and in the background I'll push that back a little bit with some cooler green, lighter green, and between the two it should set off and have that this foreground tree mass, a little bush come forward. And I do like the coolness that achieved in the back there. So hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry you didn't get to see me putting in the damp part, but I used my ruler that I've used in various videos, just subtle little touches, and boom, there's a little buildings and such back there. Oh, something else I want to mention too, as you can see how there's a portion at the bottom that I didn't paint on. This is 11 by 14 panel. And I talked about in the beginning about the idea of carrying just bigger panels, say even a 12 by 16 I'm contemplating. And then when I get to a scene, I can decide what composition to use and scribe it out with a pencil and ruler. And I potentially could get 3 paintings on a panel. The little bit of a trick there is when you're painting the next painting after you've painted the first one, not messing up that painting. But it's definitely something worth experimenting with, so you don't have to carry a lot of gear. So if I choose to do that, I'll cover it in the video. But yeah, and there's really not in this particular one. This worked out to 7 by 14, 7 down. So not a whole lot of room to do anything with this down here. You could do like little miniature cloud studies. That's something you can do after the fact, like if this is a very busy with a lot of clouds during the day, and then when you're done painting your main painting, you can say, oh well, such neat clouds, let me practice them, and you can use that area for that. Or if you're trying to mix color variations to go with your main painting, this would be a nice area to say you nailed your sky. So you put a stroke of paint for the sky. You want to match your green against that, you can put that stroke next to the sky rather than commit in your painting up here until you get it right. Just some ideas. Okay everybody, now that concludes the video here, and again, sorry about losing the last part of the painting. You didn't miss a whole lot. Putting in the dam, that sort of thing. You've seen me use my ruler technique before, so I want to thank you for joining me. Again, if you're new to the channel, I invite you to subscribe. Be sure to hit the notification icon to be alerted as when I post new videos. And I invite everybody to see posts that I do that you won't see on YouTube for my Facebook art page, habowskistudio, and Instagram handle being at habowskistudio, the symbol at habowskistudio. So till the next venture, bye.